Each year, Microsoft Research hosts hundreds of influential speakers from around the world, including leading scientists, renowned experts in technology, book authors, and leading academics, and makes videos of these lectures freely available.
For Dr. Musnick's talk on orthopedic medicine, preventive and holistic remedies to all of us who are weekend warriors on the basketball court and hiking around the beautiful Puget Sound. I'm so pleased he is able to come and take the time to talk with us this afternoon. In addition to being on the faculty at the University of Washington and teaching at Bastyr University, he's a well-traveled speaker and is always running around the United States trying to help us all live better lives. And so please help me welcome him this afternoon to Microsoft Research.
I assume my mic's on. Can you hear me okay? Okay. This talk is actually on guidelines and prescriptions for optimal health, for optimal energy, and for optimal brain function. So I'm going to cover a lot of material that you probably wouldn't even ordinarily hear a doctor talk about, okay? And a little bit of background on myself. I'm board certified in 2 fields of medicine, sports medicine, and that's the orthopedic side of things, and adult internal medicine. I'm also the author of this book, Conditioning for Outdoor Fitness, with a subtitle of Functional Exercise and Nutrition for Everybody. And this is good for anybody who's not in a coma. This book, because this book has so much information not only about how to exercise and all this new information about what's called functional exercise, but part 4 is totally devoted to nutrition and wellness and has chapters on women's issues, has chapters on nutrition and exercise for optimal wellness, all kinds of information about how to stay well and healthy. Now, my talk is going to include more information than what's in this book, but this book is a great guide for exercise and nutrition. I'm in private practice in Bellevue, Washington, which, as you know, is not too far from here. And my practice is a combination of adult medicine, but I take a much more holistic and integrative approach to prevention of diseases, to improving function and assessing function, optimizing wellness, and dealing with a lot of problems that a lot of docs might just give a drug for that I get to more the root of the problem. I also do orthopedic medicine from a non-surgical point of view, and I do a lot with pain management, but I also have specialties in nutrition, in designing exercise programs for people. I see patients with all kinds of orthopedic problems, see patients that are having trouble sleeping, have insomnia, anxiety, people who want to lose weight, people who want to manage weight, and I see patients that just want to stay healthy, and they say, I went to my doctor, and they said they did their physical, ordered a few labs, and then I said, well, what else can we do here? And the patients are coming in to see me because they say that's not enough anymore to just say, well, we got a blood test and see you next year. That is not answering a lot of people's needs on how to stay well and healthy and prevent diseases, so I do a lot with that. This book was published November of 2004. This is the 2nd edition, but the 1st edition did not have a part 4. And I wanted to write a completely new book, but I was so busy I didn't have time to find a new publisher. So I asked this publisher if we could change the title. They said, no, it's too popular the way it is, but you can change the subtitle to indicate that this book is now about nutrition and wellness. So we changed the subtitle to Functional Exercise and Nutrition for Everybody. It's available at REI in Redmond. It's available at most bookstores. It's available on Amazon, and that's the phone number to get it directly from the publisher. Okay? And they'll mail it to the publishers in Seattle. Now, here's some goals for this talk. To give you some guidelines to be optimally healthy, and a lot of people don't know what being optimally healthy is. Okay, and I'll try to educate you a little bit about that because it's a desirable thing. To exercise smartly to achieve health and body image goals as well as improve performance. To understand and take charge of your aging process. Not many people know that you can do that. We're all aging. And when I was in my 20s, I didn't even think about it, and nobody does. But anytime you start thinking about gaining control of your aging process is the time to do it. Okay, and I'm going to talk to you about that. To help you have a lot of energy, to help you manage stress and sleep well, help you sharpen your focus and brain function, your memory, and your performance with your mind. Help you prevent diseases such as heart attacks, strokes, and cancer, and help you maintain or lose weight smartly. Now, what are your goals? Every one of you probably has goals, and we unfortunately don't have time to go around the room and find out about what each one of your goals are. But I suggest you start opening up a Microsoft Word file with your health goals, because most people don't have any health goals. But if you have a file on your laptop or someplace and start expanding your health goals, that will actually help you improve your health. Okay? I got a file, I got a Word document that's my own health goals. And I am adding to it occasionally, but they've been pretty refined for a while. So do you want to be healthy forever? That's a desirable goal, because you know what happens to most people that I see, and most people that I hear about from other doctors, they're healthy until age, who knows what, 40, 45, 42, and then it starts to go a little bit downhill, and they lose their energy, they're not sleeping as well, they don't feel as vital, their brain doesn't work as well, they can't remember things as well, and eventually they can get cancer and heart attacks. That's not desirable. The desirable thing is to be so healthy and well that you live to be 110, and all of a sudden you go on a hike or something, and there you're gone. That's it. And that was a great life. Not all this suffering and debility, brain function problems, the whole thing. It's not the way to go. So being healthy forever, that's a good goal. Do you want to look younger than you are? That's actually possible. You can take a person who's 40 that looks 60 and a person who's 40 who looks 35. Now, when we're 20, we want to look older. But as we get a little older, we want to look younger, okay? So do you want to look younger than you are? Do you want to have a brain that functions at high efficiency for as long as possible? I know you all want to have computers that function at high efficiency for as long as possible, but brains that are functioning at high efficiency, that's desirable. How about being mentally sharp indefinitely? That's desirable. Having a lot of energy and not burning out? Then the question is, are you taking charge of these goals? Are you saying, I need to organize these goals and make sure these things happen, as opposed to just relying on my quote-unquote primary care provider to make sure these things happen, because these aren't the goals of your primary care provider. I don't know if you noticed that, but they're not. And about 12 years ago, I expanded my horizons because I was tired of having limited goals for patients, which was basically, you know, do you have a disease or a symptom? Let me see if I can help you today with that. And that unfortunately was the limit of most of the goals. Okay, so the average doctor that you see does not have these goals, unfortunately. The conventional model of health and disease is relatively simplistic and linear. Your body is quite complex, though, very complex. Many internal systems that are very interrelated, but unfortunately in medicine we have all these specialists, and oftentimes these systems in your body are not seen as so interrelated. Okay? So the health of your brain and your body is a relative thing, and it's really on a continuum. It's on a continuum of function and wellness. And you can take charge of your body's functional potential. The word functional means there's a functional spectrum of how well things are working. Okay? You can take charge of preventing cancer, strokes, heart attacks, and dementia. And did you know that the time to start preventing these things is now? But you can optimize your function. You know, if you're like in your 20s and 30s and say, I don't care about heart attacks and strokes, that doesn't happen for a while. Well, do you care about good brain function? Do you care that your musculoskeletal system works good? Do you care that, you know, you're relaxed and your brain's working good? So there's a lot of things that you can do functionally now. So try to avoid taking your body for granted. Most people take their bodies for granted. It's like, okay, I got this car. I'm going to drive it into the ground. But unfortunately, with cars, you can get a new model, but you can't quite get a whole new body. You can get a few parts replaced, but not as much as we'd like. So we don't want to take our bodies for granted. We want to take charge of our bodies, do things that can be really helpful along the way. And it's not that many things that I'm going to have to tell you to do. Okay, so what's optimal health? Excellent energy, clear thinking, good mood, okay? Excellent cardiovascular fitness, strengthened muscle mass to have a normal metabolism, but also to look good, look the way you want to, and to minimize your chance of having injuries with doing the sports and activities you like. And be free or relatively free from vessel diseases in your heart and your brain. It's also to be free from troubling symptoms from your inner organs and your joints and muscles. Okay? It's also to sleep well and of course have good relationships and be involved and have a healthy environment for fresh air, clean water, and healthy food. I wish I could say that if you just took charge of your body, everything would be fine, but we still need healthy water and food and things that we're not totally under control of. So our medical system, what's the deal with our medical system? It's oriented towards disease management. There's linear thinking. If you have this, I give you that. That type of thinking I got tired of about 12 to 14 years. It was just too boring for me. I said, I'm not keen on just every time someone comes in, if you get this, I give you that. And I don't know, you've all experienced it. And it's not complex enough, it's not web-like enough to really say how to improve your function. Prevention is usually limited to cholesterol only, some cancer screening and checking for signs of disease. And the end result is a high incidence of people being fatigued in our society, a high incidence of people being depressed, having poor memory, poor brain function, more rapid aging, heart disease, strokes, and cancer. And they say that we're paying too much money for health care, and that, you know, in the future, not too long, we won't even be able to afford the amount of money we're paying. That's because we're not preventing and optimizing function as well as we can. So why is the medical care system like this? Well, most docs aren't keeping up with the literature and the research. It's hard to keep up with the literature and the research. What I do to keep up with the literature and the research is I organize a group of doctors that meets once a month on Mercer Island, and we bring in a lecturer, the state-of-the-art lecturer. The other thing I do is I read 3 articles a day on the stair climber. I get on one of those Stairmasters, you know, that you walk on, and I read the articles. And that's the best way I can keep up with things. Did you know it takes an average of 8 to 10 years for a well-researched recommendation to be incorporated by the average doctor? That's why if after this lecture you went into your doctor and said, Dr. Small, I want you to get some tests that I heard about. They're called homocysteine and lipoprotein a and CRP. Dr. Small, even though the literature came out 7 years ago, may still not be up with it, may still not have been incorporated because the research shows 8 to 10 years to incorporate this. The other thing is a doctor is unlikely to order a test unless they know what to do with the result. But if they order your homocysteine test and they don't know how to control your homocysteine to reduce your risk of heart disease with B vitamins, they won't order the test because they don't know what to do about it. Okay? Okay. So this is a few things. Most medical schools and medical schools in general don't educate doctors how to write exercise prescriptions. They don't tell them how to do lifestyle changes, how to improve sleep and stress management. And they don't, believe it or not, teach doctors about nutrition or supplements. And so you just, in general, it's hard to get that information. The only way you're going to get it from a doctor is if they went to naturopathic school and really learned the stuff, or they're a medical doctor that has really taken extra training in this material. That's the only way to get it. Now, there is a different model, which is called functional medicine. It's emerged about 12 years ago, and it's a whole field of medicine that's evolved, which involves thinking about cell and organ function and looking at the interrelationships between your immune system, your gastrointestinal system, the blood vessels, the inflammation, all these things in the body that are interrelating. Now, what is aging but losing structural integrity and function at different rates? And that's what we want to sort of get a handle on. So aging is very complex. There's a limited number of cell divisions that your cells can do anyway, and tissues decrease in their ability to repair themselves over time. Why do we think that people start getting more diseases after age 40? Heart problems, vessel problems, arthritis, all these things are starting to decrease in function. So aging is a combination of damage to your DNA, damage to cell and organ function, and free radical damage. Free radicals are these extra electrons that you've probably heard about, and there's the free radical theory of aging. Extra electrons are looking for an electron to pair up with. And in doing so, they will damage tissues and cells in the body. They come from air pollution. Your body makes them when you exercise. They come from toxins that you consume in your foods. They come from all kinds of places. And toxin accumulation from PCBs, pesticides, mercury, all these things that you're getting exposed to can damage cells and speed up the aging process. So what we have with aging is degeneration of structure and function at different rates. Your blood vessels may be doing this at one rate. Your joints may be doing this at another rate. And the goal is to slow it down and manage it so you're as healthy as possible. Now, how about your musculoskeletal system, your muscles, your bones, etc.? What's aging there? Well, one part of aging is osteoporosis, which is bone density changes. But another part, which is really interesting, is the loss of muscle. And this loss of muscle has been documented. Every 10 years, you can lose almost 10% of the muscle on your body. That's what's sort of been shown, unless people do something about this. Have you ever seen an older person in their 70s that looks really fragile and frail? Do you know why they look like that? Because they've lost too much muscle and they're sort of hobbling around and they've lost bone, and so they're sort of like this. My grandmother looked like that. That was my early picture of what aging looked like, and I said, I never want to do this. This just does not look fun. She even had trouble getting up and down a chair. But did she exercise? No, she doesn't. Now, my mother's older than her, and I have her on an exercise program, and she's been exercising for a long time. So one thing we want to do to slow down the aging process is to keep muscle on your body and to actually build it. Okay, so you can take charge of your aging process, you can optimize and protect your vital systems, and you can prevent the degeneration of your mind and your blood vessels, or you can at least slow it down. But the time to start is now. Okay, so here's some general recommendations I have for doing this, okay? Getting 8 hours of sleep is pretty darn important. Sleep is a regenerative function. There are so many biochemical things that happen during sleep that are so important. You know, if you don't get enough sleep, you're a little irritable, you can start getting fatigued. But if people really don't get enough sleep for a while, they can start aching all over their body. There's lots of things that can go on. So it is important in general to get 8 hours of sleep on a regular basis. And we have what's called a sleep deficit. If you don't get 8 hours of sleep on the average, you will build up a sleep deficit. And if you don't make it up on the weekends, you'll have even more of a sleep deficit. Now, the studies show you can't make all of it up if you're completely sleep deprived. But you can make some of it up, and I do recommend trying to make some of it up each week, especially if you're working a lot, you've got projects that are happening, you've got to get something out soon. I recommend trying to make up the sleep deficit, because otherwise it can lead to some harmful effects. I've had patients that were so stressed out and didn't sleep for a while, they were working so much that they ended up compromising their immune system, getting a bad virus, and ending up with some real problems. So the sleep thing is really important. Then optimizing your cellular energy production in your mitochondria. Your mitochondria are the places inside your cell that make the ATP, that make the energy. And I used to think they would never come out with an ATP bar, and it's true, they still haven't come out with an ATP bar. But you have to make sure that you're doing things to make sure these mitochondria work properly. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. But part of this is getting enough calories so you're not going without breakfast and without lunch and 4 or 5 hours without eating, and also getting proper mixes of protein and carbohydrates so that your blood sugar stays reasonable, so you're not depriving your cells and your brain of glucose. But there's other things to do to optimize your cellular energy. Then you want to limit inflammation. You've probably all heard about this, but inflammation is now thought as one of the common pathways for dementia, heart disease, and cancer. One of the questions is, how inflamed are you? And I'm not talking about irritable. I'm talking about how inflamed is your body, okay? Because you want to limit that. But did you know that the standard American diet, abbreviated SAD, causes inflammation? It causes inflammation. Why? Because there's lots of fried foods, there's deep fried foods, there's an imbalance of fats. There's a lot of things in the food that aren't necessarily good for you. There's the trans fats, which you should avoid. These different things in the standard American diet cause inflammation. So if you want to decrease your inflammation and decrease your risk of these functional problems and diseases, you do have to modify how you're eating.
Can you define inflammation?
Inflammation is a cellular process in your body that has to do with usually the white cell reactions to certain stimuli. The clearest thing that you can think of is if you sprain your ankle, there's an inflammatory process that goes on temporarily that leads to swelling to sort of ward off the area. But if you got sick with a virus or a bacteria, there'd be an inflammation process that would try to kill the virus or bacteria. It's a general cellular mechanism to deal with certain things in the body. But it's very harmful if it goes out of control. It's okay for short periods of time. But on a cellular level, I'd have to talk with you personally to give you more information because it gets very technical. Okay?
Would you measure would you do one of those scans?
Okay, I'll talk to you about that because it's coming up about how to measure inflammation. Yeah. Okay, so the other thing to manage aging is minimize your toxin intake. Now, toxins are chemicals that your body does not have in your body normally. And did you know there's a figure now that you could be exposed to any one of 70,000 chemicals on an average day from either air pollution, remodeling stuff in your house, the products you use around your house, or what's in your food. I couldn't believe it was up to 70,000. Your body has to take these chemicals, biotransform them in your liver, and try to get them either out in your urine or in your bowel movements. And if it can't do it, guess where it goes? It goes in your brain, it goes in your fat cells, it goes in other places too. So, and these things are related to cancer because now it's felt that 70 to 80% of cancer is what's called environmentally induced. Environmentally induced means toxin damage to DNA, etc. So it is a really good idea to slow the aging process down to minimize toxins. That's why in Chapter 26 I talk about how to do it. But I do encourage people to start out with good, healthy fruits and vegetables and eventually try to pick organic fruits and vegetables when they can and the free-range meats because there's less toxins in those foods, as well as to do things when you remodel and the products you use around your home to minimize the toxins you're using. Okay? There's other goals like improving methylation. That is a very complex biochemical thing that can be done with B vitamins and maintain a healthy immune system and limit viral infections. The best way to maintain a healthy immune system is getting enough rest and eating a healthy, balanced diet and doing some certain things when you go on planes because the place you're most likely to get some of these things is with the air circulating on planes. Okay, what about by eating? What can you do by the way you eat to try to get a little more improved function or healthier? So, eating a healthy diet to provide phytochemicals for detoxification. Phytochemicals are things in your food that are healthy chemicals. Now, I'm going to go into this a little bit later, but the best way to do this is to eat fruits and vegetables of all different colors. And I have a slide later on about this. Call it Eating from the Rainbow, literally. And there's a great book called The Color Code, written in 2003. Of all the research that's been done, most of it's been done at Tufts University Medical School. They've analyzed practically every fruit and vegetable and looked at ones that are the best antioxidants. I couldn't believe this when they said prunes have the most antioxidants. I said, okay, fine, but I'm not doing that. Okay, but kidney beans, did you know kidney beans have some of the best antioxidants in them? I started choosing kidney beans at the salad bar just because of that, whereas originally I go, those look weird, I'm not taking those things. But I'm suggesting you start eating not only with your mind, but also with some knowledge. Because the way I suggest eating is you choose foods both on the basis of how they look, how they taste, and how healthy they are. And some people say, oh, but that's not going to taste very good. I don't eat food that doesn't taste good. All the food I eat tastes good because I don't like eating food that doesn't taste good. But it's more on the healthy side of things. So you want to eat adequate protein, and we'll talk about that. And you want to actually incorporate healthy fat. It's been said that there's a very big imbalance in terms of the kind of fat that people are getting. One of the most healthy things you could do is start reading labels and avoid anything that says partially hydrogenated. Those have been linked to heart disease and problems with the brain and inflammation. If you shop at Whole Foods in Bellevue, they say that they don't have any trans fats in anything, and I actually teach classes there, cooking classes, because my patients said, how do I make this healthy food? And I said, I don't know. I guess we're going to have to teach a cooking class. So now I teach a class called The Doctor and the Chef. Meets every other month. I'm the doctor, I educate about some topic, the chef starts cooking, and people start eating. So I got a lot more used to what's going on at Whole Foods, and I tried my best to find unhealthy trans fats. I walked every aisle. I couldn't find anything with it. So, you know, that's sort of a no-brainer if you're able to get over there. They have everything from Oreos to anything you want. There's no trans fats in any of their stuff there. So we don't need trans fats anymore in the food supply, but the food lobby is so strong, it's still in most foods. It's even in most protein bars. And the way you avoid it is it says partially hydrogenated, and then there's some oil listed, and that's what you don't want. Okay? You do want some good omega-3s, and I'll talk about that. You can get that in walnuts. So a healthy snack is actually walnuts and macadamia nuts and mixed nuts. Mixed nuts has actually been shown in studies to help prevent heart disease. But you want to get the mixed nuts that don't have MSG and glutamates in them, just regular mixed nuts. Okay? Also, omega-3s are very healthy. And I think I have another slide about this. Hopefully I do, because I want to talk about that, because a lot of people are confused about that. Then you want quality carbs for energy. So many people are thinking, I can't have any carbohydrates, or the low-carb diet, or the South Beach diet, or this or that. It's hard to get enough calories to support your body in a day if you don't eat any carbohydrates. So what I suggest is that you choose healthy carbohydrates as opposed to unhealthy ones. The unhealthy ones are the quick sugars and the candy and but I am an advocate of dark chocolate. It's got very good antioxidants. If you're not sensitive to chocolate, it can be a good food. But these quick, the donuts and some of these things, these quick starches, are not good for you. They put on calories. But there's lots of good breads that you can buy out there. You can make grains. As a matter of fact, the next Doctor and Chef class, I found out, I'm teaching it. Monday the 23rd at Whole Foods in Bellevue is on cooking and incorporating healthy grains and fiber in your diet. And it's almost a full dinner, too. That's Monday the 23rd. Okay, so fiber for colon health. Fiber, 25 to 35 grams per day. It's tough to get. That's why the chef at this place said, Dr. Buzzy, you got to help us figure out how to help people get that amount of fiber in their diet, because people say they can't do it. Fiber is important for colon cancer prevention, and colon cancer is one of the major killers in this country, and people can start getting that after age 40. There's nothing that says you can't get it, You have to wait till you're 70 to get colon cancer. No. We have to keep our colons healthy. And one very interesting thing, most people don't think about keeping this healthy. Have any of you thought about what's below here and above here? And why do I need to keep this healthy? Well, one reason is, did you know 60% of your immune system is in here? 60%. So if you're inflamed in here, or it's sensitive, or you got a lot of gas or bloating or stuff going on here, I call it SGO, stuff going on. But if you got SGOs down here, then you can have more inflammation in your body. Or if you got inflammation in your colon because there's lots of imbalances, you're more at risk for colon cancer.
So why does fiber help the colon?
How or why?
How or why?
Okay, there's two types of fiber, soluble and insoluble. The insoluble, the easiest way to think about that is the wheat bran and the wheat bran cereals. I think of that more as a steam shovel approach, getting the bowels out of your body. And, most people don't know, well, how many bowel movements should I have per day? What's healthy? I've had people guess, well, probably once every other 2 days, 3 days. No, like 1 or 2 a day, sizable quantities. Get that stuff moving through your body on a regular basis, because things can get recycled in there. Soluble fiber absorbs things. Soluble fibers like oatmeal, beans. Beans are actually incredibly healthy for your colon. They're soluble fiber. So that's another thing. They're not only antioxidants, but they're soluble fiber. So it's a combination. Those recommendations for 25 to 35 grams of fiber is a combo of soluble and insoluble. The best way to get it, to tell you the truth, is for breakfast to eat a breakfast cereal on an almost daily basis with like a bran cereal. And you don't have to do the pure bran. You can mix it with some other things. And then to eat a couple apples a day. And then the 5 to 7 servings of fruits and vegetables. There's a lot of ways to get it, but most of the ways to get it is that way. Okay? And there's some extremely healthy breads out there. There's a bread that I eat now from a bakery called French Bakery. You can get it at Whole Foods or PCC. It's got 5 grams of protein and 5 grams of fiber in each slice, and it tastes good, which is amazing, because if you don't want to eat breakfast cereal, you can just put some almond butter on that or something. Okay. Now, more food choice issues. To maintain your blood sugar for optimal energy and brain function, you don't want to have your blood sugar dipping way down. You want to eat breakfast. A lot of people skip breakfast. And you know what the average breakfast is in this country from professionals? A cup of coffee and a scone. That does not keep the blood sugar up very long. Or, we could go around the room and find out what the average professional breakfast is in this country here. But I tell you, there's not very much protein in it. The effect of eating protein with breakfast is it helps keep your blood sugar up over time. And did you know your body needs a certain amount of protein a day, and if you don't eat it, do you know where it takes it from? Your muscles. It eats the muscles. Okay, so your body takes out muscle. That's why you don't want to be trying to keep your muscle on your body and not eating breakfast and lunch. You're not getting protein. So the average breakfast is a scone and some coffee. The average lunch is what? A salad. That's the average female professional's lunch. Guys do salads and some other things, but so most people aren't getting enough protein at breakfast and lunch. Their blood sugars are dipping down. And what do people do when their blood sugars dip down? They go for the quick things, the quick snacks, the quick carbs. That's where people are craving things. The most cravings are related to low blood sugars. Now, so what's a good breakfast? Either that bran cereal and having something else with more protein like mixed, believe it or not, I take mixed nuts and put it in the bran cereal. But the other thing is making yourself a protein smoothie. A lot of my patients say, I don't have time to make breakfast. I go, if you don't have time, I don't have time. And I make a time, which is to make a smoothie. So this protein smoothie is pretty easy, and I got the recipe on the next slide here. The other thing you want to do is you want to aid detoxification for how you eat. How many of you are going to the salad bar or saying, what do I have to have for vegetables? And you're saying to yourself, I got to get the bad stuff out of my body. And the way I'm going to do this is to aid my liver by eating some broccoli or some kale or some leeks. And these things are extremely healthy. They've been shown to prevent cancer. They help your liver biotransform chemicals that shouldn't be in there. And I advocate that people eat something from that broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kale family every day, as well as something from the leek, onion, garlic family every day, because it really helps your body. And if you haven't cooked with leeks, try it. It's very tasty, very good stuff. What you do is slice them in little slices and steam them, mix them with other vegetables, stir fry them with omelets or whatever. Very healthy stuff. Then when you're eating, say, gee, I need to have things of different colors because the different colors have different phytochemicals in them. So you want the reds, the greens, the purples, the yellow, orange. The purple things have been shown to help your brain. The purple things have been shown to help the blood-brain barrier stay safe. Do you know that you have a blood-brain barrier in your brain, and its job is to keep things out of your brain that shouldn't go in there? Okay? I mean, there's someone trying to keep me out of here unless I had the right credentials. So there's a blood-brain barrier that tries to keep things out. You want to strengthen that blood-brain barrier, you want to protect it, and you want to decrease inflammation and oxidation and free radicals in the brain. And the best way to do it, believe it or not, is to eat blueberries. But organic blueberries, because most berries are sprayed with pesticides. So you can get frozen organic blueberries. You put half a scoop in your smoothie. You can now get them, of course, when you go to the store. But blueberries, blackberries, those darkly colored berries, all the different berries are very healthy for both your brain and your heart. And I was very pleased to see there's a company called Lakewood that makes juices. You can get them at PCC and Whole Foods. They just came out with what I think is one of the most amazing antioxidant juices. It's called pomegranate heart healthy or something. And it's got blueberry, pomegranate, all these phytochemicals in it, and it tastes good. It tastes good, so I recommend if you like juice that you get that because there's not a lot of sugar in that, but it's really good for your brain and the rest of your body. Okay, what about protein needs? Now, how do you figure out how much protein you need? You need 0.8 grams per kilogram of lean body mass. Now, lean body mass is the amount you would weigh if you're in your perfect weight, whatever you'd think that perfect weight would be. And unless you're really overweight, most you're probably close to your lean body mass, but people that are overweight have to say, okay, what would I weigh if I was really at my lean body mass? Okay? But you need more protein if you're exercising. You need, if you're exercising aerobically, the way I recommend, which is 5 to 6 days a week, cardiovascular exercise for at least 30 minutes, you need about 1 gram per kilogram. Now remember, you take your weight in pounds and divide it by 2.2 and you get the kilograms, okay? I always talk about the average 70 kilogram person needs 70 grams of protein. But if you're really training quite a bit for something like for a marathon or Seattle to Portland or something else, you need about 1.2 grams of protein. And if you're bodybuilding and really trying to put more muscle on and really form a lot more muscle, you might need a little bit more protein. So I've got some other information here. Breakfast, free-range eggs with veggies. Most people don't have time to make that except on the weekend. Or cereal with nuts or nut butters, or a protein smoothie. Now, for a protein smoothie, the average scoop of protein powder has 15 grams of protein. So if you take a scoop and a half, you'll get about 22, 23 grams. If you start the day with at least that amount of protein, you're going to at least have a chance of getting the protein you need. Okay? And then you mix that with 8 to 10 ounces of the fluid of your choice. Okay? Except for soda pop. Don't mix it with soda pop. And then some type of berries or banana. I recommend the berries because you might as well get those good phytochemicals in first thing in the morning. And that'll give you 22 to 25 grams of protein. Now, what kind of protein do you want to buy? That gets tricky, okay? My feeling is some of the best protein is whey, because whey can help the immune system. So if you want to benefit, I like to multitask. I like to benefit my immune system, benefit my brain, and get enough protein all in the same drink. That's multitasking, one type of multitasking. Okay? So you cannot really find organic whey in most stores. If you can, buy it. But you got to look and see what they say about what the cows are doing, because the average cow in this country is not that healthy. So it's nice to get organic whey, and I have a source listed here. If you want to get organic whey, there's a company that only sells to doctors, but I can get people a source for it if they email me. I'm not going to give out that information now, but if you're interested, they have organic whey, this particular company. And the other thing is, how do you find a protein bar that's really healthy? Remember, when you look at a protein bar, if you're going to use protein bars to augment your protein, you want to see, number one, how much protein is in there. I went into the store the other day and it said protein bar, there was 4 grams in the bar. And I thought that's ridiculous because it's mostly carbohydrates. You want at least 12 grams in a protein bar. Ideally 12 to 15 grams. You want it to be tasty. You want it to have no partially hydrogenated oils. And it'd be nice if it had a few vitamins and minerals. Okay, so there is a source of protein bars that I listed here. It's called Ultra Lean Low Carb Bars with the same company. Another source is Cliff Bars. Cliff Bars are fairly reasonable. They sell them in a lot of places. Whole Foods now has them for 99 cents, which is better. Some stores sell them for $1.70, and that's kind of outrageous. But Cliff Bars are pretty reasonable in terms of the amount of protein and how pure they are. They're pretty reasonable. I forget how much protein is in them. Okay, let's talk about protein purity and toxins. Animal protein is most likely to be contaminated with things that you don't want to be taking in. That's why it's better to choose free-range chicken or free-range turkey or free-range beef, okay? Because otherwise it concentrates up the food chain. Also, you want to limit or eliminate your intake of large fish, because large fish like tuna, swordfish, have a lot of mercury. Mercury is not good for your brain or your nervous system. Some of us have it in our mouths. I recommend do not get any more amalgam fillings. If you got any, don't get any more. And if you have kids, I recommend against them, get the types of fillings that are just the color of your teeth. Okay? There's a lot of information on that, and I'll talk to people individually about that, but I don't recommend getting any more of these. But I also recommend limiting your mercury intake from your fish. Used to be said, eat salmon every week, because a study came out that said if you eat salmon once a week, there's less chance of heart attacks. That gets a tricky recommendation. I'd say if you want to eat salmon, make sure it's wild salmon, because the farm salmon have PCBs, which is a toxic chemical. And I don't know how it's getting into the farm salmon, but it is. But the farm salmons are basically along the coast, and they're doing certain things that aren't as healthy. Okay. In terms of dairy, if you consume dairy, which is cheese and milk and all this, try to choose organic dairy products. I know it costs a little bit more, but it is healthier. You can get them in every grocery store now. Horizon makes them. There's lots of companies. It is healthier. I realize there aren't as many choices for ice cream, but you can get organic ice cream too. Okay, and there's lots of sources of vegetarian protein. If any of you are vegetarian, there's lots of different sources I listed here, combining grains and legumes, beans, eggs, etc., nuts, all kinds of things. Now, fat guidelines for good health. We want to minimize the trans fats. I talked about that. You want to minimize saturated fats. You know, the difference between regular ice cream and low-fat ice cream is pretty significant in terms of the saturated fat issue. But you want to think about incorporating omega-3s in your daily routine. Why? Because omega-3s, including the EPA and DHA and the omega-3s, have been the most studied intervention other than exercise. If you said to me, what things can improve health have been most studied by research, I'd say exercise and omega-3s. If you do a Google search on either one of those topics, you're going to find a lot of hits on either one of those topics with research articles. Now, the studies have shown that 1 gram of fish oil per day helps mood. A couple grams helps decrease inflammation. A couple grams a day helps decrease the plaques in the heart. And have you ever heard of anybody having a sudden heart attack? The reason sudden heart attacks happen is because of plaque rupture. Those are inflammatory plaques, so EPA can help that too. And then the DHA, how many of you have kids here that are less than 15? Raise your hand. DHA is essential for brain development. You know, it's now in formulas. It's an omega-3. It's required in most formulas now because it's essential for brain development. But it's essential until the kid is a full-grown teenager. And then EPA is a good idea. So pregnant women should be taking DHA, lactating women, breastfeeding women, and then the kids themselves, as soon as they can take the DHA, they should be taking it themselves. And studies have shown you have a smarter kid, more likely to succeed at Microsoft.
Is it as effective to have omega-3s in pills or just oil form as it is to have them in food?
It's hard to get enough omega-3s unless you supplement with it, or unless you eat the fish. The problem is that the mercury comes with the fish. I'm now recommending that people actually supplement with the omega-3s, because if you supplement with omega-3s, either the capsule form or there's liquid, you want to make sure that the bottle says this product has been tested and been shown to be free of mercury, PCBs, and pesticides. Otherwise, don't buy that product. Okay? So there's certain fish oils that are tested for that or purified for that, and a lot of them aren't. But
flaxseed oil works the same?
Flaxseed oil does not work the same. Flaxseed oil is an omega-3, but it has to be converted by an enzyme system, and there's only about 18% efficiency. So you can get it as if you're a vegetarian, you can get omega-3s, but you have to take a lot of flaxseed oil and walnuts. Remember, you can't heat flaxseed oil. You can't cook with it. You just pour it on stuff. Okay, carb guidelines. Use healthy complex carbs as opposed to the quick carbs. And you know, we all eat quick carbs. I was teaching in San Diego this weekend and at a hospital, and we went down and someone said, oh, you want to eat lunch at the French bakery? I said, I don't eat those kind of carbs. They said, check this place out. So I did, and they had the most amazing almond scone I have ever had in my life. So I had a bunch of those carbs. So I eat those kind of carbs. I would call that high quality. High quality, unhealthy carbs, as opposed to the low quality bakery carbs. But what I'm suggesting is you incorporate good quality complex carbohydrates in your diet, like beans at the salad bar, really good breads like this one I'm talking about, more of the whole grain breads, the cereals. Cliff bars have good carbs in them, and that you actually learn how to make grains and legumes that are actually healthy. You can actually make a side dish at home, not only of brown rice, but you can make a side dish of like millet, quinoa. Some of these grains are extremely tasty. You just boil them for 15 minutes in a special little thing, and it's done. It gives you some calories, and especially if you're exercising every day, you've got to replace the glycogen in your muscles. Why don't I take questions at the end? It will be easier because I still want to go through a lot of material here. Okay, let's talk about arthritis and joint support. Somebody came up to me today and said, I've got some issues in part of my body. One of my joints isn't so good. Are you going to talk about that joint? I said, I can't talk about every joint in the body, but I will talk about joint support with nutrients. Some of us, weekend warriors or whatever, have gotten injured. Okay? And then we got in some what we call degenerative joint changes, which means the joint's a little thinner, it's not working as well, it hurts, whatever. Even though it's called degenerative joint disease or DJD, it's not really a disease. What it means is a particular joint, like your hip or your knee or your ankle, has the cartilage injured and is now not as wide or as normal as it should be. Now, there's lots of things to do about it. Sometimes orthotics help in your shoes. Good shoe wear is essential. Okay? And then there's a supplement called glucosamine sulfate that's been shown in numerous studies to help support the joint lining. 1,500 milligrams supports the joint lining. So I recommend people take that if they have any degenerative changes that they want to support, and there's no side effects from the stuff. You need to take it 8 to 10 weeks before it really starts working. And I would avoid regular chondroitin sulfate. It's in most of these joint support supplements, but guess where it's from? Cow windpipes. And I don't think that's a healthy source right now. So I would recommend if you're going to take glucosamine sulfate to support your joints, make sure it's pure glucosamine sulfate. That's what's in it. Most bottles, people bring in their bottles. Whenever anybody makes an appointment with me, they come in with a bag of their supplements, and I analyze them and say, this is appropriate or this is not as good as you can be doing. And most people aren't taking glucosamine sulfate. Their joint support supplements have a lot of other stuff in it, but not that. So that is important. Now keep your eye on vitamin D. That's an interesting vitamin. It's been lately a lot of information. Everybody used to think vitamin D was just for bones. It's now found, the vitamin D receptors have now been found on every cell practically in your body. Do you know what that means? Vitamin D is not just for bones. It's now felt to be important in cancer prevention. Cancer prevention with vitamin D. Nobody would have thought that. So I recommend people take at least 400 units per day of vitamin D, and you can get that in a lot of multiple vitamins, or if not, take it. Now, guess how much vitamin D you make on an average day if you walk out in short sleeves and shorts, if it's sunny. And this is only from May until September around here. In San Diego, it's different. But we're in the northern latitude. You make 20,000 international units within 20 minutes of being exposed to the sun. That's pretty good. So on days when you do that, and I'm not advocating you expose yourself to the sun, okay? Because I don't want some dermatologist calling me up and say, my God, what are you telling these people to do? I'm just saying that we do get vitamin D through our skin unless you lather your whole body up with factor 15 or something. And it is healthy, but not to burn, just a little bit. It is healthy. It's essential during the winter. So to supplement with vitamin D is essential during the winter from October through April, okay? And it can even help your mood. Okay, so exercise is really critical for good health. You want to do both aerobic and strength training. And exercise is the most well-researched thing that has ever been shown to improve health. Now, if you exercise cardiovascularly 30 minutes in your target heart rate zone, 5 to 6 days a week, you can potentially achieve the following benefits. You can decrease your risk of fatal heart attacks in half. That's huge. Fatal means dying. So that's huge. Okay? My patients say to me, I can't really relate to a heart attack. I say, well, that's when your heart gets partially damaged, or the other time you can't relate to a heart attack is when you're dead. Okay? So either partial heart damage or enough so you can't even be alive anymore. And I say, the thing you don't want is to be in the coronary care unit looking at all these monitors and stuff. You want to be visiting someone in there, that's fine. You don't want to be in there yourself, right? So exercise is essential. It'll cut your risk of strokes by 40%. What's a stroke? Half your body doesn't work. That's not very desirable, okay? Hard to work on your keyboard then if half your body doesn't work. Okay, it actually cuts the risk of colon cancer, and it improves your immunity, sleep, blood pressure, and cholesterol. So lots of benefits from cardiovascular exercise. But how do you design your program to get these benefits? 5 to 6 days a week you want to be doing it. You want to be in your target heart rate zone for 30 minutes. But that being said, even taking a walk at a break for 15 minutes is helpful. So if you took 2 15-minute walks a day, it would still get close to it, but it doesn't quite get in the intensity issues. Now, your target heart rate zone is your max heart rate, which can be calculated as 220 minus your age. So for a 40-year-old person, that would be 180. That would be their estimated max heart rate. And then you multiply it times 70%. That's the low level of your heart rate, and 85% high level. So it takes a few minutes to warm up, but eventually you want to be in that zone of heart rate. That's when the benefits are the most. Now, how do you know if you're in that zone? You feel like you're working pretty hard, but you're not going to fall off the equipment or fall on the floor in the aerobics class or something. But you feel like you're working hard, and most people are going to sweat doing this. Okay? I say to people, if you're not sweating, you're probably not working hard enough. Okay, so the zone is a little lower if you want to lose weight. It's 60 to 70% if you want to lose weight. Why? Because more fat burning occurs in that zone. Okay? But you got to do it longer. If you want to lose weight, you got to do it for 45 minutes to an hour. That's why a committee came out with recommendations in the newspaper. I don't know if you remember this, but it was 3 or 4 months ago sometime. They said the average American should be exercising 1 hour a day. That was the average overweight American. It didn't overturn this business. Okay? Now, what if you want to really achieve some high-level performance? Then maybe you want to do interval training. Okay, so let me tell you what it is. Interval training is bursts of 30 seconds all the way up to 4 minutes of higher intensity exercise. It can be done to improve your performance. It can be done to help you lose more weight. Or if you're a busy professional, you say, hey, I want to burn as many calories in 20 minutes as some people burn in 30 minutes. So you could do interval training. And what you do is you got to have 8 to 12 weeks of regular, established cardiovascular fitness and say, okay, now I'm ready for intervals. You got to not have any heart disease in your family or be screened for any risk of heart disease if you're over age 40, because interval training is a bit more risky. And you can't have any orthopedic problems from your back down to your feet, because speeding things up can aggravate things. And then what you do is say, okay, let's say you're on the Stairmaster or you're running. Say, okay, I'm going to do an interval. And you decide to go pretty fast for 30 seconds to a minute. And then you back down to your zone. And it's sort of like this. Bleep, bleep, bleep. Most programs on your cardio equipment don't do this. They take your lunar landing from way low and way high, and they're not reasonable. You want to have a program, if you're going to do an interval program on a cardio piece of equipment, that takes you through your zone and just bleeps up from the zone and back down. So the best type of interval training is just you do an interval every time you feel like it, but you say, today's my interval day. I'm going to do it for, 20 to 30 minutes, but I'm going to do 5 to 7 intervals, anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 minutes. But don't do interval training on consecutive days. It's too difficult on your body. Try it. When you eventually want to try it, if you do it no more than 2 days a week. Okay? And it can be done for weight loss, too. So that's the information. And Chapter 3 of my book has all different types of intervals that you could try. Chapter 3 of the book is all on cardiovascular training and interval training. Okay, what about strength training? It's important. It can help you tone. It can help you shape. It can help you improve your resting metabolic rate. Do you know that if they locked you in a room at Microsoft and let you go to the bathroom but never exercise, you would still burn calories, of course. And you burn calories according to what's called your resting metabolic rate. If you just sit there brain dead at the computer, you couldn't even think anywhere, you just sat there. You'd still burn calories. You need a certain number of calorie burning to keep your organs alive. That is so related to whether you can lose weight or not, because if your resting metabolic rate is too low in the number of calories you need, and you eat too many calories, you're going to gain weight. And if your resting metabolic rate goes up, you can lose weight. Strength training puts muscle on your body and helps your resting metabolic rate go up, so either it helps you lose weight or you can eat more stuff. If you like eating, and you like maintaining your weight, you can put more muscle on your body. It also slows the age-related muscle loss that I talked about. Basic program of strength training, what you want to think about is doing things for your upper body like bicep curls, tricep extensions. 2 sets of 12 will be pretty good in terms of maintaining your strength. 3 times a week is needed to build strength. 2 strength training sessions a week is needed to maintain what you got. You also want to do like a chest press, a lat pull to the front, a row, and some basic ab work. Now, most ab work is just the crunches, and it's not very helpful. You want to do some ab work where you're sitting and rotating, because did you know most of the things that your abs do is function while you're standing up or skiing or walking, whatever. They work to balance you. So there's exercises in this book called functional abdominal exercises that work your abs like they're really used in real life. Okay? It has been shown that if you exercise the big muscles on your body, such as your chest, your upper back, your thighs, and your butt, 2 3 sets of 10 to fatigue, which means the last rep in a set, you can do it, but you're struggling a little bit. You will secrete growth hormone at night more than you usually do. That slows the aging process. I don't see anybody here that didn't have enough growth hormone when you were a baby. You know what you would have looked like if you didn't have enough then? You'd be a midget, really. But as we get older, we lose growth hormone. It starts going down. And this is one way, strength training, to increase growth hormone, because growth hormone increases muscle and it also decreases sagging and wrinkles. I don't know about you, but I don't necessarily want a lot of sagging and wrinkles. I don't think anybody does. So strength training can also help with that. Now, we also want to incorporate functional exercise. What's functional exercise? It incorporates different regions of the body at the same time. But it also works with gravity. Okay? And it also works with balance. And it works your core. That's what functional exercise is. If you go into a gym and you sit on a machine and extend your knee, that's not functional exercise. It isolates one joint, works one muscle, and doesn't work the way these legs usually work. So if you go out skiing or hiking or do something, you go, I wonder why my legs aren't working as well as I want them to. I go in the gym and I do this because that's not functional. Okay? So part of the emphasis of this book is functional exercise. And part 2 of this book goes over every region of your body, from your chest to your butt, your abs, has a whole set of different functional exercises. And the interesting thing about functional exercises is they're also fun. They decrease boredom. And a lot of trainers, since the first edition of this book came out, are doing functional exercise. They're having people do all kinds of things, standing on this balance thing, pull, do this. You'll see a lot of it in the gym. Some trainers really specialize in it. Now, if you want to sort of guide your own strength program, this book is almost like a personal trainer. It doesn't talk, but it's got all the information you need to guide a program. And I'd say if you read a lot of this stuff, you'd know more than most personal trainers, especially how to be safe doing this stuff. The best chapters in this book are chapter 5 and 6 and 10 through 15. The 10 through 15 is the different regions of your body that you could focus on at different times. Anybody know this picture? That's up at Mount Baker, on the south side of Mount Baker. Someone's named it Three Tree Lake, but I don't think it really has a name. And I'm not going to tell you exactly how to get there because it is so beautiful and a nice place to sit. But it is the south side of Mount Baker, that's what I will tell you. If your energy level is low, there's other things that you want to do to try to sort that out. Thyroid tests, some other things, get your blood checked for anemia. There's a lot of other things. And these are some things to strengthen your energy. If everything checks out okay, maybe your mitochondria are not getting some things they need. There are some supplements that help mitochondria, including CoQ10 and something called L-carnitine. You all have CoQ10 in your body. You all have carnitine in your body, but these things can help your cells make more energy. And some people will take these things when they do vigorous exercise or training for something. The other thing is stress in your adrenals is an interesting topic. Your adrenal glands are above your kidneys. And most people have never even heard of the adrenal glands because all they hear about is the thyroid. Make sure your thyroid's okay. That's all they hear about. But did you know that adrenal gland dysfunction is probably more widespread than thyroid dysfunction? Do you know why? Because of stress. And over time, we can damage our adrenal glands' ability to respond to stress. Now, what does stress do? Stress actually can lead to increased cortisol temporarily until you burn out, and then you don't have enough and you feel fatigue. But did you know that the stress that can lead to increased cortisol also damages your memory? Numerous studies have shown that stress leading to increased cortisol damages the hippocampus in the brain, central part of the brain, and that part of the brain controls memory. And I can't tell you how many people have been telling me, I can't remember things as well as I used to. I go into a room, I'm not sure why I'm there. You know, I mean, they know what state they're in and that kind of thing. They know they're in Redmond when they're in Redmond. But people's memories are getting a little less good, and it's because of all the stress that we're under. The blood tests in general don't evaluate the adrenal glands because in order for the adrenal blood test to be positive, you've got to almost be near death's doorstep. It's called Addison's disease. It doesn't evaluate it as well. So the best test that I've been able to find for adrenal function is called the Adrenal Stress Index, which actually measures the salivary levels of adrenal cortisol and test it over a day. Because what's interesting is when you wake up in the morning, you should have the most cortisol. When you go to bed at night, you should have the least. And there's a circadian rhythm, a 24-hour rhythm of cortisol. And if it's off, things can be off in your body. If you don't have enough in the morning, you won't want to get out of bed. You won't feel that good. If you have too much at night, it's hard to go to sleep. So this could be something that's healthy to test and healthy to tune up. Few quick things, and we'll probably finish early. Not early, but I want to be able to take questions. And I usually do this. I have so much information. I prepare more slides than I have time for. So do we have 5 minutes, or are we like over?
No, we're doing okay.
Okay.
5 minutes.
Okay. Okay, so how about your brain? How many people here want their brain to work well and be efficient? And you know, a lot of people want more money. That's a pretty, I want more money, and I want more time, and I want to be happy. But you can accomplish these things if your brain is functioning well. That helps you accomplish this better. Okay, so how's your memory, and also how efficient are you with cognitive processes? And are you a person that also has a little ADHD? Your mind tends to wander. You want to do a little of this and a little of that. Some of us tend to do that when we're under more stress. Are you forgetting things frequently? Are you as sharp as you want to be? And when were you where you wanted to be with your brain function? Was there a time back then you say, yeah, my brain function was great, and now it isn't as good anymore? Then there's the emotional brain. There's a great book that came out called Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman, who basically said you won't have as much intelligence if your emotional situation or your ability to manage emotions and keep yourself from being triggered, if you can't manage that well, it's going to preoccupy your mind and take up too much of your RAM. It's unbelievable. You know, how much RAM do you have in your brain? I will tell you, we don't have enough. We do not have enough RAM in our brain. It's a problem. You can't go to CompUSA or tech support here and get more RAM. You go, I need some more RAM for my brain. Put it right in here, please. How do you know you don't have enough RAM right now? You go, I'm overloaded. I can't think. I'm maxed out. That tells you your RAM's maxed out, okay? What can max out your RAM is emotional stuff going on where you're getting triggered easily and upset and whatever. And one of the best books I found to deal with this is called The Feeling Good Handbook by David Burns. He talks about how to manage some of this stuff on a day-to-day basis. And the other thing that's good is the exercise helps to manage it too. But we didn't come with instruction manuals, nor do we come, you know, in relationships with, okay, here's your husband and wife and how they do their emotions and how you do it. So this is a pretty complex subject. I don't want to say it's easy, but our emotional health is extremely important. So the ideal is good memory, good cognitive abilities, being able to focus really well, being able to multitask, not having fatigue, being highly efficient, and limiting your brain inflammation and keeping emotionally healthy. That's what we want. Now here's a picture of the brain. The brain is very complex. There's neurotransmitters up there, there's synaptic connections, and there's many parts of the brain that are interrelating. We have the blood-brain barrier that's supposed to protect things that we don't want getting into the brain. We want to keep that blood-brain barrier healthy. I talked about blueberries. Omega-3s can help keep it healthy. And there's a great book on the blood-brain barrier called The Brain Gate by Robert Hatherill, which is very interesting about this whole subject about how to keep your brain healthy. There's things that go on at the cellular level, the things that go on in the neurotransmitter level. And there's these neurotransmitters that basically make the signals. And here's a picture of neurotransmitters right at the junction in places in your brain. There's a picture of how omega-3s can work to augment neurotransmitters and how B vitamins and other things can work. Now, neurotransmitters are really critical, and it's really interesting because you've all heard about serotonin. I'm sure you've heard about Prozac and Zoloft and all those drugs. Too many people are on those things. Why? Because they're not happy, okay? And they're depressed, and their mood is down, and they don't know how to manage this. So it is interesting because if you exercise regularly, mood is improved. But there's ways to actually augment your serotonin. And some people do really well when they take a little bit of an amino acid called 5-HTP in the morning. It helps augment their mood and they think better. Some people don't have enough energy and their mood is down and they take an amino acid called L-tyrosine and they do better with that. But at any rate, there's ways to evaluate and improve your mood and your brain functioning. There's also things that can actually improve your memory, your sharpness of your memory. Not only ginkgo, but some other things that can actually improve the sharpness of your memory. So I mentioned stress before. It's really important to manage stress because the cortisol gets too high for your brain. There's all kinds of things that you can do to manage stress. Get enough exercise, sleep enough, and then figure out the things that you can do something about. Like time management stress is the worst thing. If you're always late for things or you got time deadlines, that's the worst stress. Then comes the financial stress, the relationship stress. I say I'm pretty good advising people about the stuff in their body. I'm not a financial planner. I'm not very good with my organizational thing. Although, do any of you watch that show, The Apprentice? You can admit it. You know, I don't watch it. I don't usually watch it, but my wife watched it. In order to visit with her sometime at home, I have to go in and go, "Hi, how you doing?" And then I get caught up in this show. So I don't know if any of you watched that episode where they designed the organizational thing for Staples. But now it's available. So now if you feel like you're disorganized, you can go online to Staples and get the Apprentice Desk Organizer and help yourself with stress from not knowing where things are. You know, once things are a few inches in your piles on your desk, you probably never see them. So it helps to be organized. Now, I've got lots of information in this slideshow about how to prevent cancer, how to prevent heart disease. And I want to just say, because this slideshow will be available, right? How do they?
People can just email me.
They can email Tamara, and they can get the whole slideshow. Okay? So you can read the rest of this, because some of this we don't have time to cover. But I do want to show you something here. This has more information about how to eat, limit inflammation. I want to show you something about blood vessels. As you can see on this slide, this is a blood vessel. This is a blood vessel in your brain and in your heart. And one of your goals after this lecture might be to keep my arteries open. Keep your arteries. You might want to have have you ever seen a bumper sticker that said keep your arteries open? So we, of course, want to keep the traffic lanes open around here. But at any rate, here's the deal. We either gradually block off the arteries from the way we eat and other things and the free radicals, and we get something on the very end of this, which is this obstructive thing, which causes problems. Or the worst thing is we get this plaque. Little bits of plaque in there that you wouldn't think is narrow enough to block that artery. And then, boom, it ruptures and blocks the whole thing. That's how you hear about these strokes and these sudden heart attacks. So one of our goals is, let's check out all the risk factors for these arteries doing these things and tune up all these risk factors so you're at least risk for plaque ruptures as well as for the gradual closing off. And need any of you think that you don't got this problem? You all have it. It's all there. They've studied teenagers in auto accidents at age 17 and found this plaque in their arteries. We are all in a process of plaquing up our arteries. It's just a matter of how much we have. We have to have a goal of managing it. So there's different things you can do to evaluate the risk. The most typical thing you get in the average doc's office is cholesterol check. But that's very limited because there's so many other risk factors that have been found. And so I've listed these other risk factors here. Not only the lipid panel, but the lipoprotein(a), the homocysteine, the fibrinogen. The CRP is the inflammation marker. Someone asked me about that. That is, and you want to keep that less than 3. But the doctor has to order what's called a cardio-CRP, because otherwise they'll get a different CRP rate. It has to be a cardio-CRP. Now, I'd recommend it being less than 1. The lab says less than 3. But you're still at risk if it's between 1 and 3, so I'd say less than 1. But there's no drug you can take to get it down. You just got to manage your inflammation like I was talking about. And these are other things. The most reasonable things to get are the lipid panel, the lipoprotein(a), the homocysteine, fibrinogen, and CRP. Those are the most interesting things and important. But also your fasting glucose to make sure you're not developing diabetes and something called the hemoglobin A1C. And then all these things can be tuned up with either exercise, nutrients, and rarely drugs. Drugs do not need to be used that often to actually tune these things up unless you have hereditary genetic conditions. And then the drugs are only available actually to tune up the cholesterol. At any rate, I got a lot more information about each one of these things about heart disease and cholesterol. And I think what we'll do is just flip to the end here. So a few things. I'd say learning about your health and investing in yourself has really high returns. You know, the stock market doesn't have as high returns now. Neither does, you can't really get a CD I mean, I got a CD recently at Wells Fargo. It was 3.5%. I thought, oh, wow, this is unbelievable. But that still isn't that good. But believe it or not, money you actually spend for your health, in case you didn't know it, occasionally your health plan is not going to cover some things. That does happen. They don't cover you to go to the grocery store and pick healthier food. So you sometimes have to invest in your health. But it really has a huge payoff, the knowledge and the health things that you do. Having new health goals is important. And I say to people, hey, every week do a little something until you're at a place where you say, I'm doing all that I can do that's reasonable to be as healthy in my brain and my body as possible. This book will help you for the exercise in the first 3 parts and the part 4 for information about supplements and diet. And I'll be around if you have any questions. Do we want to do questions as a group or just have people come up and ask questions?
Let's do them as a group for like 10 minutes.
Okay. Okay, does anybody have any questions?
I had a question about organic cereals versus the fortified, more mass market cereals, and the fact that you can't really get as much of the fortification in the organic cereals, and that's kind of an issue in terms of vitamins and minerals.
Oh, okay.
But the source is better as the organic.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. The Journal of the American Medical Association in 2002 actually suggested that the average American take a multivitamin. And one of the reasons was because of the B vitamin issues and some other things. And so I recommend that people look for their breakfast cereal primarily for fiber and the taste and some other things. And you actually can now get fortified organic cereals or fortified natural. You can actually. Not quite like Total, which had, quote, 100% of the minimum daily requirements, but, you know. But I do suggest people take a really good multivitamin to meet the needs, not only the antioxidants, but the B vitamins. And so I don't know that you can necessarily look for a cereal that would do that for you. But, you know, there's so many cereals that are out there that you can probably choose a healthy cereal that has some fortification in there. Any other questions?
With regard to some of the alternative forms of medicine, like
Yeah.
homeopathics and acupuncture and things of that nature, have you done any studies on, or do you have any information on how those play into your overall plan?
Well, I would say that acupuncture is, things like acupuncture are primarily used for treating certain things. And I don't know of any studies that look at it as a preventative mode. Homeopathy is interesting. It's the use of very dilute substances to treat things. There have been studies on treating particular things, but I don't know of any studies that say that sort of evaluating and treating with homeopathy helps wellness. There are some people that do homeopathy that would say that, but I don't know any studies. So the most studies have been done in regard to exercise, diet, nutrition, stress. Those are where the most studies have been done. I can tell you anecdotally about some of the alternative treatments, but not in terms of research based.
You talked about muscle mass and building it up reasonably, and how that, if I understood correctly, can positively affect metabolism?
Correct.
Okay. So is a relationship there? You also hear kind of conventional wisdom that you say as you get older, you lose muscle mass.
Right.
As you get older, your metabolism naturally slows. So that's all kind of correlated to each other?
As you get older, you lose muscle mass, your metabolism can slow, your resting metabolic rate can go down. That's why people gain weight easier as they get older. You know, a lot of people say, gee, well, I was eating the same stuff before, but once I passed the age of 35, this little thing came on there, and then it, you know, so trickier.
One of the challenges with nutrition is trying to figure out which of the 1,000 messages you hear in the media, makes sense and is accurate, because it changes frequently what the current thinking is. Do you have any recommendations on a place to get information that tends to be stabler, more reliable, or how do you deal with all this?
Well, what I would say is this, that you got diet books coming out regularly because diet books make a lot of money if they get popular. Okay, so that's going to happen. And most of them are twists on the same thing. What I tried to do in my book, which was current up until November, and nothing's changed that much except some new food pyramids came out, but I was in touch with the research on the new food pyramids because I heard lectures by Walter Willett from Harvard, who was instrumental in the new food pyramids. They turned a lot of the food pyramids upside down. Not only is there a new one, but there's a number of them now. And there's information. Hotmail, which is what one of my email accounts has, had that on the other day about the new food pyramids or something. So I recommend you look at that. Chapter 26 of my book takes a lot of the diets and tries to synthesize what has been constant over time, metabolically good for people. Because the main things are what's good for cancer prevention, what's good for blood vessel prevention, what's good for brain function. And I synthesized a lot. I looked at every single diet out there. And then there's websites in there. There's a lot of websites in there. And there's some government websites, and I'd be foolish to tell you that there's a place that you can look for the next few years. It's just going to be constant. But I will say a lot of this stuff on omega-3s has been constant for years now. The low carb thing, that gets debated a lot, and it really has. There's individual. You all have biochemistry. Biochemical individuality. Some people say I do better on a low-carb diet. Some people say I do better on this. But everybody needs adequate protein. So there's certain things that I talked about and that are in there are pretty stable. Yeah?
You talked about the glucosamine and drive not being a good partnership. So just the glucosamine. But what's your opinion on the MSM?
The MSM, I just wrote a chapter in a book on this stuff. And MSM, unfortunately, doesn't have enough research articles to support that it's helpful. So I can't advocate it. Studies have shown actually that chondroitin is helpful. I just don't like the source of cow windpipes. There's a store called Nature's Pantry in Bellevue that has a source of chondroitin from shellfish. It's called low molecular weight chondroitin. It's healthier. It's also pricier.
Trader Joe has one too. It's called Joint Support, exclusively shellfish.
Oh, good. Cool.
It's cheap.
I have a question about, is that me? Okay, sorry. What your take is on things like fasting and cleanses and colonics as a thing to do either to kickstart a healthier lifestyle or to do as a yearly basis?
That's a big topic. And I don't know that I can answer it well in front of the class, but I'd say I don't agree with fasting. Because if you don't support biotransformation in your body and you just go without eating and drink water, you're not going to do too well. So people used to advocate complete fast and just drinking water. And I don't advocate that. I'm advocating at least getting a certain level of protein and nutrients. And I'll tell you, it works great for people who have food allergies because then they stop eating the foods they're sensitive to. But it's better to get blood tests on that and see what that is. But that's a big topic. I'd rather talk to you about it privately because it's not a short answer. Any other? Yeah.
You mentioned Walter Willett, and I'm sure you're familiar with his book. I think a new version's coming out. He advocated a little bit of a low glycemic diet as well as whole grains versus, and he's puts refined flours and even wheat bread type stuff in the same category as candies and stuff like that.
Yeah. Because he's talking a lot about insulin sensitivity. I didn't even get into that. Right. But one goal is to maintain your body's sensitivity to your own insulin. Because you don't want to become type 2 diabetic or develop what's called the metabolic syndrome. So a lot of his research, some of his research is based on that. So he's talking about low glycemic index foods, and he's also talking about limiting the things that are going to just jump your blood sugar up. And I think it's very reasonable.
It's very hard to do, I find, because whole grains are harder to come by.
Yeah, and what I would say is this, that you don't have to be too uptight about it. That the better way to do it is to say, okay, I'm going to choose healthier carbohydrates. I'm not going to worry too much about eating low glycemic index, although I got a whole thing on glycemic index. I got a website in here about, you can look up the glycemic index of anything. You start doing that, though, it just is too difficult. You go, oh, gee, I'm only going to eat things up to a glycemic index of 70. You go nuts. It's better to eat the healthier grains and carbohydrates. And, I would say, the Cliff Bars are pretty reasonable that way in terms of glycemic index. And you can eat reasonable glycemic index and not have to spend too much time thinking about it. I have a bunch of stuff in here, both in the sports nutrition chapter and regular chapter, about that issue and how to do it without getting too crazy about it.
Hydration recommendations?
Well, people need to be well hydrated, and that gets into the whole issue of what is pure water and that sort of thing. Because, people need fluids, and you don't want to have dark urine all day long. That means you're somewhat low in fluid. So, it's been said about 6 to 8 glasses of fluid per day. It doesn't have to all be water. I recommend using filtered water and limiting plastics. There's a whole bunch of information about that. But, and having, a filter that you use at home. But 6 to 8 glasses of fluid, a lot of it may be water. It's quite reasonable, so you're not like low on the fluid every day.
I can understand if you have hypertension that salt can be detrimental.
Yep.
It increases your chances of having a heart attack.
Yep.
But if you don't have hypertension, is salt bad for you?
Well, you need salt. I mean, you're talking about sodium chloride.
Right.
You need some salt.
But too much of it.
Is too much bad for you? Well, you already said too much. So by definition in your linguistics, it probably isn't good for you. So, I would say this, that some people are used to taking a salt shaker in every meal. It's just going on there. That's probably not a good idea. But, there are these types of salts that have, like sea salt could be healthy, the iodinized salt. We need iodine for thyroid function. So I would say in general that if you're conservative with the salt, you're probably going to be okay, as long as you don't have hypertension. I mean, and the other thing is if you go hiking in hot weather, you need some salt. So I'd recommend, getting the bags of mixed nuts and gorp that have some salt in it as opposed to the no salt stuff. You're going to be out on an all day long activity. Yeah.
What about alcohol consumption? Pluses and minuses?
Well, the main thing about alcohol consumption is it can damage your brain cells and it can damage your liver. And so, and then again, red wine has been shown to have some phytochemicals that can be somewhat healthy in terms of your HDL. But I don't recommend people use alcohol because there's lots of ways to get your phytochemicals without damaging your brain and your liver. So, an occasional glass of alcoholic beverages, but, some people are doing, a beer every night, 2 beers every night, 5 on the weekend, and it's a cost-benefit analysis there. It's not good for you.
Do you have any advice for like tendinitis or tendon pain?
Yeah, but that's very specific to where your tendinitis is.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about like elbows from like climbing or something like that?
Still very specific, because I don't want to give you tendinitis advice about your elbows when everybody is sitting in here listening, but come up to me afterwards and we can talk briefly. I can't do physician sessions outside of my clinic.
Well, I didn't know
but
they have stuff for your joints you can take. I didn't know there was
well, supplements, supplements are not, enough protein is real important. That's the main thing. But supplements are not as helpful for tendinitis unless there's things like ginger and curcumin. They're natural anti-inflammatories that will decrease tendinitis a little bit. But the joint support supplements have been shown by numerous research studies to support the cartilage in your joints, but there haven't been any really good tendon support supplements. So there's a lot of other ways to get at the tendinitis. I wish I could tell you there was a tendon support supplement. But maybe if you develop it, you could make millions of dollars.
Dr. Musnick?
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and finish there, and if you have any more questions,
Yeah, you
please
can come
feel
up
free
and
to
talk
stick
to me.
around. But thank you very much.
We have copies of the